if you watch the video I posted about Nancy Pelosi being reelected as Speaker of the House, I talk about how the left just had another huge defining moment, because the progressives that we elected and sent to Congress to bust up the establishment, they ran on being these revolutionaries fighting for the working class in this country. They had they had veto power in the speaker's race. They had the power to change the direction of Congress. They could have removed Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House and made a list of demands that the next speaker needed to meet in order to get their vote. And if the speaker did not meet, if the next person that the Democrats nominated to be Speaker of the House did not meet those demands, they wouldn't get their votes, and their votes, the majority in the House is so small that the Justice Democrats, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowen, the Justice Democrats alone had the power to hold up, to prevent anybody from becoming Speaker until their demands are met. And Forced to Vote was demanding a floor vote on Medicare for All, which is something that they all ran on. But presented with the opportunity, they folded, they rolled over for Nancy Pelosi, and they voted for her to be Speaker of the House and got nothing real, nothing substantive in return. Now, most of you in my audience already know who Kyle Kulinski is, political commentator on YouTuber, co-founder of the Justice Democrats. Now, from the beginning, Kyle has always been on board with this Forced to Vote effort that Jimmy Dore started. Well, now that the moment has passed and the leverage is gone, a lot of people on the left, a lot of people in new media are doing an autopsy of this moment to figure out what exactly went wrong. Now, Kyle Kulinski posted a video about his autopsy and analysis of what went wrong with Forced to Vote. And I have to say I was incredibly disappointed by that video because, yeah, he threw in some weak criticisms of the Justice Democrats, but he was doing a lot of excuse making, and he was going out of his way to try to tell people not to be too mad at the Justice Democrats, to not call the Justice Democrats sellouts, which is what they actually are. This is a recurring problem with Kyle. I think he does have a clear bias towards the Justice Democrats, even though sometimes, he'll say when they're wrong, but his reaction to them is never proportionate to how they're actually acting, to what their actions were. And he feels this need to act like a human shield when the left starts slinging bows and arrows at AOC and the rest of these progressives. He feels the need to come out and tell everybody, no, they're not sellouts. Don't call them sellouts. They're our allies. They're our allies. And he's just incredibly dismissive of the fact that anybody who is rational and who is actually paying attention to what's going on in politics, he finds it unthinkable that anybody on the left will call AOC a sellout. And sometimes it's like he has the memory of a goldfish, particularly when it comes to Justice Democrats, when it comes to elected progressives like Bernie Sanders. For all of us on the left, everybody else, when we are judging these politicians, when we're criticizing these politicians, when we are forming our opinions of them, that opinion comes from compiling all the different things that they've done since they've come into the public eye, all the things that they've done since their election, all the things that they've done since they've been in Congress. And we take all those things and we put them together and then we make a final judgment. But for Kyle, it's like his view of them, his opinion of them is stuck back in 2018 when they all ran for Congress, 2017, 2018, when they all ran for Congress. And every time we have a major event, a defining moment for these different politicians where they clearly fuck up and they do the wrong thing and they're on the wrong side. Kyle, he'll come out, he'll be honest, he'll come out and do a video, say, hey, I think it's wrong that they did that and I think they should do this. And, he puts it out there, and then the next time there's a giant defining moment, and again, they shit the bed and they roll over for the establishment. He says, hey, I disagree with them there. I think they should have done this. And every time it's just like rinse and repeat, and none of the other moments, they're not adding up to him. It's just like, oh, what can I say? They messed up here. On to the next one. On to the next one. On to the next one. And it's like none of it is adding up and changing his opinion and informing his opinion that, hey, maybe I was wrong about them, or maybe they did change. It's always they are our allies. They agree with us 98% of the time. Why would you disagree with them? And like I said, he never engages with the legitimate reasons why people call them sellouts, why people think they abandoned the movement because of the CARES Act. And then again, the CARES Act is like the Iraq War, it's like the Wall Street bailouts. That alone is defining. And the fact that they were all on the wrong side of that, people can have the right to say that they sided with the establishment and they're not part of the establishment. The CARES Act alone, getting behind Joe Biden, endorsing Joe Biden, shilling for Joe Biden, and getting nothing in return. Okay, so you're just doing the bidding of the establishment and you're not getting anything for the left. Why wouldn't I call you a sellout? Again, Kyle will say he disagrees, but he won't. None of the events are adding up to change his opinion about his favorite politicians. Kyle's bias aside, I think that in new media and on the left, there's this divide between people who are more willing to give these politicians the benefit of the doubt and to give them more chances versus the other side of the left who has given them a chance, given them opportunity to show who they are, and they keep showing us that they're siding with the establishment. Part of that divide, I think it comes from privilege. It comes from the fact that some of us have more on the line. Some of us have more to lose in these policy fights, in these political battles than others. And this isn't to say anything about their intentions, but it is just a fact that you will be more willing to cut them some slack if your life isn't on the line, your livelihood is not on the line, depending on their actions right in the specific moment. Kyle was willing to forgive them after the CARES Act because ultimately CARES Act doesn't affect Kyle Kulinski. Kyle Kulinski's fine. He's making 6 figures from his show. The CARES Act wasn't going to change that. But for people on the left who lost their job, who have no income, who about to be evicted, who can't feed their family, them rolling over on the CARES Act is a huge betrayal. Them not forcing Nancy Pelosi out and demanding a floor vote on Medicare for all is a huge betrayal for people who do not have health care. And they view this as their best opportunity to get it in the foreseeable future. And the squad just squandered it and to side with the establishment. So if you're someone who has all your needs met and who's financially well off and you're doing fine, you may care about these issues, but you don't care about it more than people whose lives are on the line here. People who are facing homelessness. This is a lot more real and cutthroat to them because everything is on the line for them. And I think a lot of people on the left need to realize this because it's easy to get caught up in the conversations about statistics and data and strategy and all that stuff. And people miss the point that people's lives are on the line here. And that's why so many people on the left have reached the end of their rope. They have a much shorter rope because they don't have 10 years, 20 years to wait and see and, sit back and hope the strategy works. They need something to work right now. And this isn't it. This isn't working right now. now there's this whole debate, this whole autopsy going on the left about what's the next moves going forward. And so Kyle posted his video, Jimmy posted his, and Jimmy Dore did an epic live stream yesterday where he went off on everyone, and it seemed like he had some very strong words about Kyle's whole takeaway here and his view of how we should handle the Justice Democrats going forward. So Jimmy's video was very unapologetic, if I should say so myself. Now I'm going to get to all of that, but first, you all already know the deal. If you can contribute to the show, links to Patreon are in the About page on my YouTube channel. I also have a link to PayPal if you feel more comfortable doing a one-time contribution. And the channel is now on Odyssey.com, which is basically like a YouTube alternative minus the censorship. They have all different types of genres, and the show is, of course, in the news and politics genre. So if you go to Odyssey.com, the link is actually in the About page of the YouTube channel. If you go there, I actually get paid every time somebody watches a video, and I think I even get paid anytime anybody follows me on there. So if you want to help support the show, go to Odyssey, watch some of the videos, and follow the channel there. Now back to this story. So I have the clip from Kyle. I'm gonna play you the clip. The clip from Kyle is about a minute and a half, and then I have a little bit of a commentary to add to that, and then I'll play Jimmy Dore's clip, which is about 3 minutes, and you do not want to miss that. So play Kyle's clip first, and then come back and break it down.
On the substance, I think hashtag force the vote was correct. But we should have started it earlier. That's number one. And that's nobody's fault. It just didn't occur to us until later on, and Jimmy brought it up. And I'm sure if you ask Jimmy, Jimmy will say, yeah, I actually should have started this 3 months before. You know, that's point number one, is we should have started it earlier. But the other point is, and I think this is really important, man, is when you're dealing with people who are your allies, and I do not doubt for a second that people who are in the Justice Democrats are our allies, it takes a different approach than when you're dealing with corporate Democrats. When you're dealing with corporate Democrats, I'm with you. Use shame all day long. Call them sellouts because they are sellouts. Call them corporatists because they are corporatists. Tell them, hey, you're my legislative enemy because they are your legislative enemy. But when you're dealing with somebody who agrees with you 98% of the time, that's not the strategy you take. You don't call them sellouts. You don't go after them viciously. You don't treat them like they're a corporate Democrat or they're a Republican, because they're not a corporate Democrat and they're not a Republican. If they would vote the way you want them to vote 98% of the time, there are more constructive ways to get them on our side. So the other thing that we messed up and forced the vote is we didn't start it early enough, but also we went immediately to the bottom-up strategy where all the people get involved and put the pressure on, and that's good. But first, what should have been done is, you know, somebody like me, somebody who tangentially knows a lot of these players, we should have reached out to them behind the scenes first and said to them, hey, how about you guys do this idea? You take credit for the idea. You lead this. And in other words, instead of treating them as the enemy from second number one, you talk to them constructively and try to get them on your side to do it. So on the substance of force the vote, I think it was correct. And I just think we should have started earlier, and we should have been put pressure on them, but more constructive in our pressure, like Ro Khanna's interns to Ro Khanna, instead of labeling them the enemy. And, you know, now here we are. We're right back at square one. We don't know all the concessions that were given. I'm very happy that the pay-go waiver is there for Green New Deal and Medicare for All, but what that tells me is, okay, you got the waiver, so now you're for the vote, correct? And I don't think they are.
All right, so let me make this quick and address the first point that he made. Okay, we should have started forced to vote earlier. Okay, I guess that's an argument you can make, but at this point, that just kind of seems like excuse making for the Justice Democrats. Because what would starting early have done? They already knew what the strategy was. They already knew the leverage that they had to force Pelosi out and make a list of demands. They already knew that before they casted their vote. And you can you can argue that, hey, maybe they didn't know that before Jimmy Dore started forced vote. Okay, but he started it 3 weeks before the vote. They all knew before they voted for Nancy Pelosi the power that they had. So, I mean, I'm not even sure like what you think would be different if we would have been doing the same thing 2 months ago, because they heard it. They heard the left, the people that they're supposed to be representing. They heard their demands. And most of the Justice Democrats chose on purpose to ignore us. And AOC, who stepped in it, was gaslighting and bullshitting us the whole way, telling us why Medicare, we shouldn't do a floor vote on Medicare for all. Oh, it's because of this and this and this and that. All right, and then the next point he makes is just this straw man that he loves to use whenever anybody calls the Justice Democrats sellouts. They agree with you 98% of the time. Where are you getting that number? Where are you getting that number? You just made it up. They don't agree with me 98% of the time. Because you know what? When I said don't endorse Joe Biden, don't shill for Joe Biden, don't give him the cover of the left, don't make him seem better than he is to the American public. And if you're going to even vote for him, if you're going to say a kind word about it, you better get something for it, something tangible for it. That was a huge moment. They didn't agree with me. They didn't agree with me on the CARES Act. They didn't agree with me for 9 months when they were playing partisan games, and they refused to call Nancy Pelosi out for blocking UBI and for blocking Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic and economic crisis. I wanted them to do those things. They did not do those things. I wanted them to run somebody against Nancy Pelosi. I wanted them to withhold their vote for Nancy Pelosi, withhold their vote for anybody for speaker, unless they got a floor vote for Medicare for all and a floor vote for UBI. They did not agree with me on that. And those are all huge. Those are all defining moments. So I don't know how you do the calculation that we agree 98% of the time, but the 2% of the time that we don't agree are all huge moments that where the left actually had immense power and they all failed to do their job and they all failed to get any results. That's a very weird way to do the math. And he says right in the beginning, I don't doubt for a second that they're our ally. Okay, well, that's your problem right there. You don't doubt for a second that they're your ally. Because, like I said, they have shown time and time again that they aren't fighting for us. And if at this late date, if after what we saw them cave for Nancy Pelosi for absolutely nothing and go along and co-sign the status quo and the establishment, if after that combined with all the other things, you still, quote, have no doubt that they're your ally, then maybe you need to take a step back and reevaluate. And look at your own biases and look at the fact that you just know them personally and you're letting that override all the objective fact. What he says next just threw me for a fucking loop, where he's trying to argue for gatekeeping, making the most elitist argument I've ever seen Kyle Kulinski make, that one of the problems was that we came at politicians too hard to do their fucking job and to do what they ran on. We came at them too hard. Instead, we should have came to them. We should have had Kyle Kulinski or another prominent, powerful gatekeeper of the left. We should have had them beseech these Justice Democrats and with hat in hand and beg them to do this strategy. One, that's very self-centered. And two, the reason why that wasn't the strategy is because, like I've been saying, all the combined actions and decisions that they've made since they've been in Congress shows the left, showed Jimmy Dore, who started Force the Vote, that they're not our allies. So why on earth, if they never listened to us on anything else, why would we go to them with this and say behind the scenes and ask them nicely? Because you know what they would do? They'd ignore you just like they ignore you every other fucking time you advise them to do anything on any issue. They ignore you. So, like, saying, oh, we should have just had me, Kyle Kulinski, go out there and talk to them behind the scenes and send them some text messages, and that would have really got it. Okay, so why didn't that work with Joe Biden? Why didn't that work with the CARES Act? Why didn't that work for the 9 months when there have been no serious stimulus negotiations and they come out and they all agree, they all vote to give us an insulting $600 not all, a means-tested one-time $600 stimulus check? You and your influence that you think you have over them is not as big as it is. It's not as big as you think it is.
The way you put pressure on politicians is to scare them. The only reason this happened is because I scared them. Because I raised my voice and I was screaming outwardly the way everybody who lacks health care has been screaming inwardly. This woman is screaming inwardly the way I've been screaming outwardly, and that's why it got traction. That's how you fucking do a pressure campaign, not by sending them chocolates. We got to be nice to the people to get them to do what they fucking ran on. Are you out of your fucking mind? That we have to be nicer to them to get them to do what they fucking ran on? You're a cuck if you don't fucking hold their feet to the fire. They ran on it. The DSA, it's in their goddamn fucking manifesto that this is the centerpiece and they wouldn't get on it. Shame them. That's what fucking works. You think this happened because I was fucking nice to them? No, it's because I finally started holding the Justice Democrats to account for their bullshit. That's why this happened, not because I was fucking nice. And that's what's wrong with the left. They're a bunch of fucking mealy-mouthed, spineless pricks who don't do a fucking thing. The moment came and they did nothing. And they sold you out for their careers. I don't care if they don't take corporate money. They are a brand. They are a celebrity fucking brand. They sold you out for their own careers, their own celebrity brand, and their own fucking protection. That's what they did. What is the point of voting for people who don't take corporate money if they fucking go along with the people who do? There's no point. This is a failed experiment. This is a failed experiment. If you don't recognize that the progressive movement is unbelievably fucking decimated, and that they won't even fight a little, and you don't see this as an existential crisis? The squad agrees with us, our policy positions, but when they won't do anything to implement them, it doesn't fucking matter. When Ro Khanna comes on my show and says, I think we should force a vote for Medicare for all, and then a chance comes up to do it and he doesn't do it, it doesn't matter that he says it or agrees with my position, does it? No. In politics, the only thing that matters is the outcome. It doesn't matter how the sausage gets made. The outcome is what matters. I don't care. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if you're not willing to threaten the Justice Democrats and scare the shit out of them, they're going to do exactly what they just did yesterday. Sell you out for their own celebrity and career, which is what happened. Now, some people give them the benefit of the doubt, and that's not what you're supposed to do. You don't give a politician the benefit of the doubt when it's clear they're lying and they're going against their own campaign promises. And if you continue to give them the benefit of the doubt, you're failing as a journalist. That's a fail. You get journalism 101, don't give politicians the benefit of the doubt. Especially as they got caught lying and gaslighting. How about some criticism of all her lies and gaslighting? Why are you pretending like that AOC is she just doesn't know what's going on? They're just making honest mistakes. They're not making honest mistakes. This is them coordinated, not coordinating. On purpose, not having a strategy. On purpose. They didn't get anything in a negotiation or else they would have fucking told you.
So I loved everything about that rant because, and I guess it's clear that the problem with Kyle is just his bias. It's not that he is addressing the arguments that these Justice Democrats are selling on the merits, and then he's coming to a different conclusion. He won't even engage the arguments that I make on this channel. He won't engage the arguments that Jimmy Dore makes. It's the fact that you even use the word sellout. He dismisses you out of hand and won't even engage. But the thing is, the way he acts towards Justice Democrats is completely contradictory to how he tells us to act with other politicians. To other politicians who refuse to listen to you, who are unresponsive to their constituents. In those cases, he'll tell you, be loud, be rowdy, make them uncomfortable, yell at them, curse at them, do whatever you curse and scream, do a video calling them a fucking salad and all that stuff. But when it's the Justice Democrats, his response every time they fuck up in an epic fashion, every time they fail, not because they tried and it couldn't happen and it couldn't work, because every time they fail, they do it because they didn't even try to fight at all. And every time they do that, Kyle's response to that, every time they show you who they are, every time they show you that they'll side with the establishment over the working class and the people who got them elected, every time they do that, Kyle's same response, same refrain is, let's be nicer to them. Let's talk to them nicer. And they'll do what we want. That's not how it works. That's never how it works with politicians. You don't nice them into doing anything for you. You force their hand. And again, we have moved way beyond trying to talk to these Justice Democrats. We've moved way beyond trying to convince them with great lefty arguments to do the most common sense strategic approaches while they're in Congress. We've moved way past that. So just like every other politician, the only options we have left are to make them afraid. And by afraid, I mean they need to be afraid for their jobs. They need to be afraid that they're going to be exposed as charlatans and frauds on the left. They need to be afraid that if they don't do what we want, there will be mobs of people outside of their office, mobs of people outside their home. That's how we force politicians' hands to do anything when they're unresponsive to us. We need to be threatening them to run lefties against them in all their districts. That's how you get them to be afraid. That's how you get them to listen and to actually consult the people who they're supposed to be representing in important decisions like this. That's how you do it. You don't keep doing what Kyle Kulinski's been doing for 2 years, which is making these vague subtweets, weak sauce criticisms on Twitter, and making these repeating the same arguments that, hey, the establishment isn't your friend, guys. You should use the power of the people, guys. Making the same arguments time and time again. And I know they've heard it, but they don't listen to it. And Kyle's, every single time when they don't listen to the left, every time they cross the left, Kyle's takeaway is be nicer to them. We need to still be nice to them, and we can't be too mean to them. Take a step back and just listen how ridiculous that sounds. They all ran on Medicare for all. They all ran on getting floor votes on Medicare for all. AOC said it does not take 10 years to get Medicare for all. We can do it right now. We can do it right now. She said that when she was running in 2018 against Joe Crowley. And now she's actively opposing a moment to get a floor vote on Medicare for all. She's gaslighting and she was lying her ass off. And when she had the opportunity to force Pelosi out and make those demands, she didn't. So if we aren't allowed to be angry now, if we aren't allowed to yell now, and we aren't allowed to call her a sellout now, we're still supposed to be nice to her? Even after she's going back on everything she ran on, everything she portrayed herself up, everything she told the left to get to where she is now. She's going back on all of it. And she's siding with the establishment time and time again. And still, we're wrong because we're too mean to her. So, I mean, I think Jimmy said it all. If I watched that live stream yesterday and he went in on everyone, and for good reason. For good reason. Because we need to actually reevaluate what's going on in this left movement. We need to reevaluate strategy, and we need to reevaluate how we treat these progressives, because this isn't working. And these aren't normal times. There's too much on the line to be doing the same failed strategy and take another 20 years, 30 years, 40 years to be in the same goddamn place with absolutely no wins. We can't afford that. 60 million people lost their job. 40 million people are about to be evicted. 60% of businesses closed. We ended small business in this country. We do not have time to keep doing the same failed strategy for the next 40 years. You want to be constructive? I'm on board with that. I don't want to just be sitting here yelling into the camera. But at the same time, I think it's important that we actually air out these disagreements. Air them all out. Because we need to make the decision to get on board with direct action right now. To pressure politicians, pressure all the politicians right now. And I think it'd be constructive if all the people in left new media, there needs to be like a series of conversations going on, group conversations between a bunch of people, maybe just one-on-one interviews or conversations between a bunch of people. And we need to get to the bottom of all of this. The strategy, the failure of the takeover of the Democratic Party, what we do going forward. We need to have conversations about all of this. And it cannot just happen on individual shows. We all need to come together and work these ideas out together, because we can't keep ignoring giant differences and hoping that they go away or become minimized because we should all have single payer. Because that's a principle that the left new media has been going by for a very long time. Let's not criticize each other because we all support Medicare for all. Well, when the time came, our best chance to get a floor vote on Medicare for all, when that time came, a lot of the same people you thought were allies were actively opposing it. And we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I'm all for more conversations being had. There's no room for to stroke anybody's huge ego. There's no room for people who are overly sensitive. These are going to be some hard conversations, but they need to be had if we're going to make any progress going forward.